I'm going to kind of queue up the right to repair discussion. You've got some great speakers following me. But basically, these are definitions from repair.org. If you want to track what's going on with repair activities, that's the place to go to. The other one is subscribe to iFixit's newsletters. So most of the information I get are from those two sources. But basically, if you bought something, you should own it. You should have the right to use it, modify it, and repair it. And there have been issues around people's right to do that, around the you own property, but you don't really own it. And so under right to repair, you'd be guaranteed your property rights, be able to repair your products or have them serviced to independent repair facilities. And independents need access to the same diagnostic information and parts available to dealers' facilities. If you ever been faced with sending off an electronic to somewhere in the Midwest to have a battery replaced, you know what I'm talking about. So that's the essence of right to repair. There have been a lot of advances over the last few months. These are headlines just since December from primarily iFixit and repair.org. We have presidential leadership. President Biden has called for consumer right to repair. And as part of that, the Federal Trade Commission issued a letter on regulatory priorities that kind of blew away most of the industry's objections about not being able to allow people to repair their own devices. Just last week, Freedom to Repair Act was introduced in Congress, bipartisan introduction of Democratic and Republican members of Congress introduced the Freedom to Repair Act. 2022 should be a landmark year for right to repair. That's a headline from repair.org. They anticipate there could be as many as 25 different state bills introduced across the US. Last year, I think the New York Assembly, one of the two houses in New York, passed a right to repair bill, but it was too late to get to the second house. Already had hearings begin in Washington and Illinois. So there's a lot of activity across the country. And then there's shareholder activity. Google's being asked by shareholders to adopt some policies to make it easier to repair their device. And hey, Google, I'm here to tell you, I'm waiting to buy a Pixel. I'm still dragging around a Samsung Galaxy 6 with my battery pack always at hand. And I won't upgrade until you come around. Microsoft has struck a deal with activist shareholders to expand their repair options. And iFixit has been working with Microsoft to help make that reality. Apple is going to offer parts and tools for repairs. They announced that, I think, in November. Germany plans to introduce a repair index to boost sustainability, and I'll talk about indices in a minute. And then the Canadian Prime Minister called for Canadian right to repair. These are just headlines over the last couple of months. In California, we're not doing too well, right? SB 605 was a right to repair bill that applied only to medical devices introduced during the pandemic. People thought it should be easier to be able to repair respirators, for example, in hospitals and not have to ship them off somewhere in the face of a pandemic. Didn't get out of Senate appropriations and is now dead. Another bill that went nowhere was AB 2110, a more comprehensive right to repair bill, never made it out of the first policy committee, the Assembly Privacy and Consumer Protection Committee, never even got heard. Susan Eggman from Stockton, who was then Assembly member, now Senator, introduced both of those bills. I'm not sure she's going to be doing that again, but maybe the industry opposition will catch up to what they've stated in the way of their intent to support repair. We'll know more at the end of next week, see if any bills get introduced. The statewide commission, Rick mentioned 17 members. including Manuel Medrano from Chula Vista, Ted Ward from Del Norte, and I worked together on repair bills. So if you want to track the commission work, go to Cal Recycle's site, search for the commission. You'll find a page that includes a link to the documents. The commission documents are kept off of Cal Recycle's site on a Google Drive. There's also on that link a portal to submit comments to the commission, and we always encourage that. Give us your ideas. We are charged with making recommendations to state and federal agencies specifically. I think we've adopted 37 recommendations so far over the last year and a half, and continue to meet every 2 weeks on the first and third Wednesdays. So we'll be meeting next week. But if you follow that document link, it'll take you to the Google Drive. You can then search under the full commission heading, or you can search for repair, for example, if you want the policy recommendation based on repair. It came out in the third report, the work that we completed in December of 21. Here's the document. Ted Ward and I drafted it. The commission reviewed it and adopted it. It's basically an update over 3 prior recommendations in the first round of committee recommendations. One is an update that reasserts that California needs to adopt right to repair, and points to the work the Federal Trade Commission did that addressed issues that have been raised in California legislative analysis before, and that maybe that FTC input can inform new analyses to allow us to repair our products more easily and affordably. Second, this was language from a recommendation that the commission made on state procurement. There's legislation to focus the state procurement program on by recycled. We assert that that should include verification of recycled content, reuse and repair claims. So reuse and repair should be part of the state's Buy Recycle program. That program should incentivize durable, reusable, refillable, and repairable options. We should require repair information for all purchases, including electronics, and note that that means require the information. If the only way you can replace batteries in thousands of state mobile phones is to ship them off somewhere, the state should know about that, know about how that impairs their operation, know about the cost. If the batteries can be more easily repaired by state technicians, that should be a part of the decision making, and there should be preference given to vendors who provide the state with repair manuals, parts, and diagnostic tools. Now, this is a recommendation for state procurement because our recommendations are focused on state and federal activities. However, there's no reason you can't do this locally. You can't do this personally. You should take all of those considerations into account. And if you're a municipal government, you should encourage consideration and information about repairs. Consider reusable, durable, refillable options in all purchasing, but particularly the repair information. Get a hold of it. What are they telling you? And can it be verified? And lastly, we addressed labeling as part of a comprehensive recommendation that helped to inform the AB 343 discussions on California labeling for recycling. We also had a repairability labeling. It referenced a couple of labeling options. One is the French option, where all electronic and home appliances sold in France now have repairability scores. They're self-assigned by the manufacturers, so they're not necessarily independently verified. And we think that they should be. So if there is a numeric scale along the French model, they should be subject to third-party verification. with those costs paid by product manufacturers. The other option, iFixit, does its own rating. I try to rely on it. That's why I haven't bought a mobile phone for the last 6 or 7 years. I'm waiting for the perfect phone to become available in the US, so I don't have to move to Scandinavia. But anyway, the next speaker, Kyle Williams, can explain what I was just talking about. Kyle's really the expert, the go-to in California and across the nation for these kind of issues. So that's enough for me, Rick.